All right, here we go. Welcome to another episode of Verbal Laxative. I'm Jason, and with me today are Zinzin and Brian. Enjoy the episode and figure out who's who.
The way you say it sounds like you're just gonna take off now. It's like
Yeah,
that's my part. Here we go.
I gotta
I
go.
mean, if that happens, then it happens, right?
I gotta say though, this was one of the smoothest beginnings we've ever had.
It
Yeah, it's
is.
almost like if we had just a single person, then it'd be the smoothest it would go. Of course,
I saw.
Zinzin would know how that would be like, though.
Yes, I'm the only one here that has actually recorded just myself for 3 hours.
Jesus, I have not listened to it, but yeah, I bet it's a banger.
Yeah, it's quite the marathon. It's you could tell his voice was running out as it was going on.
Yeah, yeah. The progression of the raspier voice, one that was so full of sound in the beginning. At the end, I was just so
Have
thirsty
you ever
for
thought of
water.
doing like professional readings, like
Have
audiobooks
I ever
kind of thing?
thought of? I will do a lot of things for money if people pay me.
All right, read the entire Wheel of Time, record it, and then we could sell it as a audiobook.
Pay me ridiculous sums of money, and I'll do it.
We're gonna have to get some sponsorship money or
Yes,
something.
I won't do it until I see the cash.
Is there actually? Well, I don't know if you know if there's a audiobook version of
Wait,
Wheel of
so
There's
Time.
there
if
should be,
you
yes, there's.
if you read the book Wheel of Time out loud in the audio format and you record it, is that copyrightable?
I don't know. I think
Can
I think so.
can the publisher of the book or the author like sue you and be like send you a takedown notice? You're like, stop this.
I want to imagine so, right?
I would think so too.
I imagine so.
Because like, I
Um,
understand you can't like copy the book, you can't like photocopy it and sell it or
no.
bind and
So
copy,
yeah,
right?
doing an entire audiobook for free of it. I imagine that you'd probably run it if they discover it. There, you might get into some trouble.
Well,
But
how is
this
that different from
segues. This
singing
segues
a
sort of.
song though?
Well, no. Like a cover. In a way, there's I guess there's different rules around it because it's
Hmm.
like you can sing the song cover, but it's like your rendition of it, right? And
Hmm.
as long as you don't like make money from it, it's just basically you singing out a performance or whatever, I guess.
Yeah,
But
the least action they would take is probably like a takedown notice where you just have to remove it, or else they'll like
yeah,
fine you and crap like that. But yeah, it's like cases where musicians or whatever take samples or whatever from other music without permission, and they could get in crap for that too.
yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. Fuck, I don't know. I don't deal with this shit. I imagine so. But this segues into because you wanted to talk today about this very thing. So
Yeah,
yes.
so the thing we were talking about is copyright and copyright infringement. And in the news, if you've been following, there's been a lot of that going on lately. Nintendo is making a lot of headlines. So there's a YouTube channel that has all the sound bites of really old games like Donkey Kong Country or Super Mario, and it created all these music, and he uploaded it on his YouTube channel, and he never monetized it, right? And Nintendo recently sent a DMCA on him and took down all those videos because they were right copyright. But the thing is with Nintendo is they never made that those songs available. Like you can't purchase a CD or download the files themselves. So like this guy took his time to rip it off just to put on YouTube for people to have access to, and Nintendo just shut it down. And people were pretty pissed because like he wasn't making money. It was kind of like a community thing. It was nice things for him to do, and yeah, it was it was shitty. And then Nintendo started doing that for a lot of copyright. Anything with music of theirs, they were taking sending people strikes and stuff and taking down their things.
Yeah, that's shitty to do. And I don't, they're probably not even gonna win this in the end because, I mean, like in the grand scheme of things, their music is just gonna get ripped anyways. Because that's like people tried to stop people from ripping music and shit, and that always failed. So
Well, it's tough because it's like legally that's the right thing, or legally they're in the power to do it, but like is it right for them to like ruin communities? It's kind of hard, right? Because for example, I think can't remember the year, but there was a year when Smash Brothers Melee was a donation game. Like so, basically, Evo was like the biggest fighting game championship. It's like the Super Bowl of fighting games. And so what they did is they had a spot for one more game. And what they did is they asked their audience to vote by donating to charity. And for every dollar you donate to that charity, you vote towards that game. And Melee, I think, raised like $100,000 or $1 million. Can't remember. One of those two. And so they were selected to play in Evo. And then the day of the event that didn't start, Nintendo told Evo that they didn't want their game to be played on stream, or they didn't want their game to be played in the tournament at all. And then people were like super furious, right? Because this is a charity event and they weren't allowed to play the game that everyone donated to. They reverted that within like a couple of hours after posting it, but it was a huge thorn. And recently they started doing that again. Because of COVID, people can't play Smash Brother Melee like together locally. So what they have to do is now play online. But Nintendo has no good netcode for online Melee. So there's a modder that had created a system that you have to download a ROM of Smash Brother Melee to play online, and it works pretty well. But the problem is that because you have to download this ROM or this emulator to play, Nintendo shut down that tournament. So that tournament also was kaput.
Yeah, yeah, like I said, I think Nintendo's on a losing end of the battle. I think they're kind of being petty with this. And then, when people, just like back then when people started ripping music and sharing that shit, and when like Napster was a thing, like all the music companies wanted to clap back, right, and try to fucking punish and try to get stuff removed and shit, but they all lost, right? It's like the war on drugs. There's no way to stop it after that, right? So basically, music is basically shared throughout. Like even now, you can get pretty much any song you want.
Well, apparently, the music industry, they are bribing the senator to create a bill to take legal actions on streamers that stream.
Yeah, of course. They always do this kind of stupid shit. Yeah, of course. And it's you're right. It does kind of ruin the community, and they just do it just basically to try to wring as much like rights and money they can get from it. Like the more that they can control, the more that they can, generate whatever profit.
I think he cut out.
Me?
Oh, okay. I thought it was just me.
Yeah.
Oh shit! What did I cut off at?
Just repeat your thing again.
Oh.
They tried to. Is what we heard.
Who tried to what? Like what was I saying?
You said they tried to. I think that's a pronoun to Nintendo.
Okay.
Or corporate in general.
Yeah, corporate. Yeah, the corporations. The people that abuse. Well, it's not really abused, but it's the legal rights and whatever, and the enforcement of it.
So, like, how much do we need to pay senators to not accept bribes?
You need to pay more than what they're offering, which is usually nothing, right? And that's what the whole deal that goes into it. It's like, the whole thing's run by money, anyways, and it's not run by vote. It is run mostly, overwhelmingly by money and the influence that you can buy with the money, of course. Just they just got to make sure they don't offend you when it's time for re-election. Other than that, they don't give a shit what you say. Just there's a huge disconnect. Right.
See, that's an issue, right? Because like it's the same with like my issue with scalpers. Because like recently there's the PS5 that came out, and not everyone was able to get one because scalpers have bought them all up.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's
by tons at a time.
Like, how do you stop that? And like, it doesn't seem like you really can stop it. There's really no way you can stop
remember
it.
In the beginning,
they'll always find a way around it.
Yeah,
too.
and remember in the beginning of the pandemic, people were doing this for critical supplies too, like hand sanitizers,
toilet
and
paper.
masks. Not toilet, but like actual critical supplies. Yeah, but no one. Yeah, but they were thinking. No, toilet paper was more driven by just people panic buying toilet paper, The
Yeah,
disinfectant.
but they still people bought it just for the purpose of reselling.
Not okay. Well, not a lot of people, like were reselling toilet paper to that effect. But a lot of people were reselling like sanitizer and masks, and like purely.
N95 specifically was sold at a higher
Yeah,
markup price.
because with toilet paper you can always it's easily substitutable, right? Fuck, it really is. Like if you come down to it, you just use whatever else to wipe your fucking ass.
Like sandpaper?
You can use like Kleenex basically. Like it's very easily substitutable.
I don't know if that sandpaper was supposed to be like a Gintama reference or something, but
Probably was. But, N95 mask, sanitizer, it's very, it's much more harder to replicate that. So, you could see at that point it was life life-saving supplies that were taken off and just people just wanted to scalp that shit. This always
so
happens.
like the government, all they can do is really like if they find you guilty, they like penalize you or make you donate your stuff, right?
yeah, everything comes down to just money.
When it really matters, they can actually rule a lot of stuff. Like when it came to the sanitizer and the mask, when they actually did something about it, it stopped that, right, completely. But they're not gonna do it for PS5s and shit or like concert.
Yeah, I was
tickets.
gonna say, how do we do it? How do we get them to side with us?
We're all on our own when it comes to that.
Because like before, it all just comes down to the money. So in any of these cases, corporate's going to have more money to give than just regular people.
Yeah, and like when they take a hands-off approach on stuff that doesn't matter too much, they're always playing catch-up. So like scalping is illegal, right? You can't just straight up just fucking scalp in the full view of everybody. But like the stuff they do online now and whatever, the laws they haven't really caught up to that yet. So it's a catch-up game for that.
Well, it's interesting too because scalping, the one example I'm thinking of has when it was started as illegal, turned to be legal. But what I'm referring to is Ticketmaster, right? Because back then, you had a show and tickets were sold at the same price, regardless of where you sat. And then Ticketmaster came up with this idea of buying all the tickets and then reselling them, but tiering them based on like front row versus nosebleed kind of thing. And then now they become the middleman between you and all the events, right? And they are the mass seller of tickets.
It's like Spotify too.
How does Spotify work?
Spotify just started as like a pirated music sharing thing.
Now it's legit.
And then
now
then
it's
it got legitimized.
Cool, because it couldn't beat it in the end, right? In Spotify's case, in a lot of the music case, it couldn't beat it at the end. Ticketmasters was just like, oh, okay, well, fucking you can make this into a legit business model.
And then like Pornhub, in a sense, is kind of becoming like that too, because recently they had to purge their library.
Oh yeah.
They went from 13 million videos to like 2 million.
Yeah, a whole bunch of.
Wait, what was the reason behind that?
It was they made it so that if you're uploading videos or whatever, you'd have to be like a verified account. So then, if you're an unverified account, they would purge your videos.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they had done it because they said they did an internal audit. This is from Pornhub himself. They did an internal audit, and then that's why they chose to do it. But there's speculation that there was another article released prior to this, saying that there was a lot of sex trafficking that were placed on Pornhub and child porn and stuff that were on Pornhub.
Yeah, Pornhub had a lot of like scandals that was getting stuff shit on them. So then that's mainly the driving force in this account purge and cleaning up Pornhub.
Well,
that's massive, though. That's
yeah. You
massive
imagine
thing.
How many people had to shift through how many videos, how much porn they had to watch.
What do you mean? They're like, oh shit, I only have a week to watch all these videos.
Yeah,
gotta find them again and download them.
Yeah, but even if you were even if you were the Pornhub guy, the Pornhub guys go shifting through the videos, because I imagine there's a substantial amount that you would have to manually look through sometimes as well, right? Most of it may be automated, but there would be some that you'd have to like manually sift through.
Well, it becomes the YouTube problem where there's just too much incoming. Like YouTube receives way too many videos than they can monitor, and so they have to write algorithms and stuff, right? So at this point, you can watch every YouTube video on YouTube. There's just too many that comes in that you would die before them.
But you see, but Pornhub is a lot more like you can upload a lot more shit on Pornhub that you couldn't on YouTube. At least like YouTube, they have the resources, the people, but they also have like the automated like the programs that they use to sift through like if someone uploads
Like copyright material.
Copyright, but also if someone uploads like porn and stuff. Like usually
actually,
they're good at getting that pretty fast. But with Pornhub, you can literally upload anything. So people were actually uploading like just rips.
Movies.
Yeah, movie rips.
Yeah, that's where I watch Infinity War. I think.
On Pornhub, exactly.
I use Pornhub for different purposes.
No, you use it to watch Marvel movies. Watch the entire season of like the HBO shows.
Like, what were you doing? I was watching porn. See, look at the title. But yeah, it was insane. And you're right. Like Pornhub, they're a little bit more lenient, but now they're not, right?
Because they're getting a lot of trouble. Yeah, because a lot of shit like you can upload anything. So a lot of stuff, like you said, like child porn and even like revenge porn and all that shit was getting uploaded.
Yeah. Do you think they'll survive then? Because they were built on a community of pirates, similar to like what we were talking about, like Spotify and like the gaming community. You know.
I think
they'll survive. They're still big enough for them to survive. And
I think in due time they still will survive because most of the porn that you see on there is free, right?
I don't know what their direct or next biggest site that they're competing with really is.
I don't. Yeah.
As far as I know, Pornhub's like the biggest internet porn site that people use.
Yeah, and all these other porn sites, they're more or less like under the Pornhub umbrella, like YouPorn, I believe RedTube and all that stuff.
This is the ThinkGeek umbrella you're talking about.
Yeah.
ThinkGeek is owner. Apparently they're a Canadian company.
Wait, ThinkGeek?
Yeah, ThinkGeek. They own
I didn't know they were that big.
They own YouPorn.
Basically a big
like Pornhub
umbrella.
is the eighth most visited website in the internet apparently. So I'm surprised that there's only eighth. I'm curious. I guess number one might be Google. Everyone goes to Google.
Yeah, that's like their startup page.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think you wouldn't want Pornhub to be your startup page, right? That would.
Why not?
Most people probably not.
You should make it your startup page. Make it on your work computer your startup page.
Well, it depends what you do, because if your work is Pornhub, then it makes sense.
Yeah, and this kind of goes to the broader question of like just copyright patents and all that stuff, right? Like what purpose does it serve, and whether it's like it's actually beneficial for everyone, or it's more just like just putting gates to stop people from, like you said, like in Nintendo's case, their whole community was built up around it, basically. In a way, in a holistic sense, it's basically promoting, like fucking Nintendo games and shit. Like you hold a Smash Bros. Tournament, you are promoting the game, but if they shut it down for copyright reasons, in a way, it is kind of like shooting their own foot. But the whole patent and the whole copyright system, it's not really meant like if you were gonna ask a layman and be like, say, oh, what good comes from it, right? They will usually say, well, it allows the person who invented or whatever something new to reap the benefits from it, or basically that's the gist of that.
Well, it's protecting incentive, right?
Protecting incentive, exactly. But like if you look at what it actually does now and what like whose hands are most of the patents in, and like who actually exercises enforcement of patents and whatever, it's not the inventor or whoever that comes up, or the people that create usually the products or make like an innovation that benefit from it. It's usually people just grabbing up the patents, usually bigger corporations using it as a tool to kind of enforce ownership laws, right?
Well, that's the issue where when a company gets too big, government needs to break them up, because they get to a point where they're just stalling innovation, right? Because no one can compete at a reasonable price.
Yeah, but the natural order is for it to monopolize. That's the whole existence, right? They always have to play this struggle, this fight, this internal contradiction.
Well, for a long time, companies weren't being broken up, right? Like, we've heard of the Chevron story when they were broken up, But after that one, there wasn't a company that got to that size where they had to break up for a
Well,
while.
now the companies
Until
are.
recently.
I would say now the companies are effectively more bigger than they were. Like more bigger than when Standard Oil was broken up. More bigger when Chevron or Microsoft was broken up. It's just they have different ways of constituting itself now, right? So that to make it like legal, like they have all these teams, all the legal like playbook that they use to, basically make umbrella corporations and shell corporations like see, it's technically a non-monopoly.
They're just getting around the system, like because they. Yeah, and that's the thing with law is they have to be updating, but they update so slow, right? They need to update as fast as how people cheat.
But
right?
also, this isn't just law updating slowly. Sometimes a lot of the cases, especially when it comes to big power and big influence, it's not like laws catching up. It's just law is there to help them enforce this because these big companies lobby for preferential laws.
They create the law
to be on
they
the
also
books.
Create the law.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, that's right. That's right.
And in the case where it's like, okay, stuff like music and stuff, especially with Nintendo, like the music's not even available for anyone to, if they wanted to buy it and someone just ripped it for no money, just for everybody to enjoy. Like he's not selling it. Everybody, you can just listen to it just for your own pleasure, which you already do for all music, basically, right?
And I think that is a way of justifying piracy. A lot of people is like, oh, you're stealing. But like, if there's no other way of you getting that product, then stealing is the only option. Then piracy, I think, is looking like a good thing.
The piracy, yeah, exactly. And the piracy thing, like this, basically was already fucking like the piracy won already during the Napster days when they figured out like, yeah, you're not gonna be able to stop people from just downloading music or just getting their hands on music they want to listen to, right? And like what you can do is just incentivize them to buy it to support the artist or the label, whatever, right? And that's what people. That's what people turn to. Exactly. But you see, well, like, yeah, when Nintendo's doing a more like an old school, outdated method where they're trying to clamp down on this shit. You can't really clamp down on it, and especially if you're like Nintendo, you're not a music producing company. Like this thing, whatever when people get together to play play the soundtrack, the OST from a game, right? People, like it is more or less like they're doing like free promotion for your thing almost, right? It makes no sense. From like a grand point of view, to be like
there's nothing for them to gain other than they get to have control. But like people
unless
can still
of course
do
they release it themselves.
Well, that's the thing.
And then it's just like normal music, and then you can look at it and be like, yeah, well, people can just you can find ways to listen to it. Like people upload all the soundtracks on most of it on YouTube, anyways. You can download it for your personal use to listen to. No, they can't effectively stop you from that stuff, But then like you can get people to buy it from you, right? Like if they like it,
that's basically their free research right there. It's like, oh, there is a demand for this. If we put that out there, people will get it.
Yeah, and the whole thing was like because you can't win if you're clamping down, so you might as well let them have it, and then you can benefit from it if you say, hey, yeah, whatever, you listen for free, but if you want to pay for it, here's how you pay for it.
Well, that's a funny thing. Like in video games, for example. Some modders, like for example, like let's say you have Warcraft 3, right? And you have people who mod the game, making use map settings, so UMS,
like Dota,
right? They
and
make
all
their
that
custom
shit.
game, So Dota and stuff that come from people taking something that's copyrighted and making their own or spinning off, making their own, right? And then because they did a good job, they were hired and then developed the game on their own and made their own IP. But a lot of these things are just all copyright. Like even Counter-Strike was a mod that was made from Half-Life, right? It wouldn't have existed if we had if Nintendo had done what they done and shut things down.
Yeah.
So,
and
there are.
Mm-hmm. Like you're right, and especially in these things, the guys who created. Just talking about like the Warcraft maps, the guy who created Dota, like the people who created Dota, like to this day, if you look at how big that game and that genre has become, they basically reaped only a fraction of the rewards that should be rewarded to them for actually coming up.
Are you talking about Blizzard?
No, not Blizzard. Like the guys, the people
that Ginsu, and, Ice Frog
that made the user, that made the custom map to play, right? Like they've actually.
Well, they did get rewarded because I think Dota hired Ice Frog and Ginsu was hired.
But I mean, like, if you look at like how big it actually blew up to be, and then what they were rewarded from it, it's a fraction of like what this actual thing. It's spun. Dota right now, yeah, it's a
That's
beast.
true. The company who got it winning was Riot, and probably what's the company who bought Dota? Shoot.
Forget, but yeah, Riot with League of Legends and whatever, and the other companies. Yeah, they're the ones that profited off of that.
Too.
And this kind of like goes back to my original point. Yeah, the patents they're not there as it exists right now, really to protect like inventors more or less.
Creators, artists.
They're not even protect, but to reward their like invention or creativity.
It's more rewarding the corporations. What you're saying?
It's giving ownership titles basically for purchase. That's what it's supposed to be.
If anyone's gonna be making money off of it, it's them.
Yeah, exactly. So like that's first and foremost, giving ownership titles to purchase, and then secondly, it's just to on the off chance it does reward.
It always feels like the middleman is always the winner, and the middleman is the least important tool in the system.
Yes, in this system, it is.
Like you have lawyers, you have the creator, right? You have the source of where the product comes from, and you have the client, the customer who's willing to pay for it, but they can't talk to the creator. They have to talk to a salesman who's the middle guy, and he's collecting profit from both ends. One from a copyright, one from like selling, and it's just like no one's happy, I feel, other than the sales guy, obviously.
Yeah, this entire class of like using the law, like the whole lawyer class was risen up in our current system because of this, to deal with all these ownership laws and how to, and all everything that arises from that. I mean, like one stop click, like was a thing that was patented by Amazon in the 90s. And if you think about it, like just they patented just being able to click one click to buy something. Amazon patented that in the 90s. Well, that technology is patented technology. So every time anybody basically wants to utilize that for their own website or whatever, more or less fucking get a cut from it. Like, if you think about it, like, oh, how much fucking innovation comes from it? No, it's basically they just wanna buy this off.
They just want to own the idea.
Yeah, that's it. Right?
Well, it's the same as Apple. They have rounded square, rounded corners.
It's fucking.
It's like it's like how ridiculous is that? And yeah, it's insane. And actually, Apple has a thing in Safari. Mm-hmm. When you drag a web page and it does that spring.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the web page, you pull it and then it springs the elasticness. Android can't copy that because that's patented by Apple. That's an Apple thing. You can only get that on Apple phones. You wouldn't find that on Android.
Yeah, and these are
Android just has a stop.
Yeah, and these are like stupid little nuances that you would just be like, oh, between Android and fucking Apple. Okay, it's kind of stupid, but whatever. But when it comes to like important stuff like drug manufacturers, right? When
you're talking about like
patents,
Viagra. Like Viagra.
No, I'm not. I'm more talking about like all the fucking like the diabetes medicine, insulin shots and stuff. And AIDS
insulin
medicine.
is a big one.
Like those ones, right? Like right now, most pharmaceutical companies are just in it for the rights for whatever drug, right? So they would purchase the rights for whatever drug that's already existing, and then they would basically corner market, and then they would just jack up the price or whatever. Right, and that actually kills people, right? But they bought the patents to it; they can do it. So then it's all allowed under law, and it would have been like before COVID became a worldwide thing, and it was like declared as like any vaccine should
no scalpers.
Yeah, vaccines were highly susceptible to these sort of like basically worldwide. Vaccine scalping, basically, right? Like, drug companies would produce something, but a lot of stuff would be kind of like overcharged, and they wouldn't meet the deadlines, and basically you're gonna have to pay to play, basically. And the governments had to they had to directly go in and kind of negotiate, like supply for most of these like vaccines, right? And if you were
imagine if that was fumbled.
Well, the reason
Like
why
they allowed scalpers to buy up the vaccines.
it was in a way, it's like if you don't directly go and negotiate with some kind of power behind you for negotiating power, you would be beholden at whatever price, timeline, and distribution would be available by whatever company that had the rights to whatever vaccine was being developed. But with this whole COVID thing, because this became like super focused by everyone around the world, these companies, they can't really do that. Like anything that comes out, they have to automatically say like, yeah, this will be available for everybody, and they'll try to keep it as close to cost or whatever, right? You can't really charge up the prices, but they still, some of these vaccines, the bougie vaccines, it's still going to be expensive just because of the method of storage or whatever, right? But if you imagine if they were like going to fucking gouge you on the price for this right now, you would imagine that there would be a lot more heft behind it, where like governments would actively prosecute whatever company tries to overcharge right now. So that's why they're kind of like stepping back and just trying to make it as widely available as possible. But if it wasn't for this worldwide scrutiny, happens a lot of times.
So should I or shouldn't I get the vaccine off the guy off the street?
If a guy off the street offers you anything, you just take it. Obviously, that's the best life rule to live by. Especially when it's needles. And the more used the needle is, the more better it is to take it.
Good. So no regrets.
No regrets.
Okay, so for vaccine, we have the Pfizer. They're being distributed in UK and Canada. And you have the Sputnik 5, I believe, that's being distributed in Russia. What other vaccine is
There's a whole bunch. Because there's Pfizer, Moderna in the Western world. Those are the two big ones. And the two most expensive
Well, Moderna's
ones.
still like researching, right? Aren't they?
But they're kind of
diagnosing people.
But they're at the next runner-up in the Western world, right? And those two vaccines
Sure. Well, I'm talking about what is
the widest one right now is the China one, is the Sinopharm, I think, vaccine that's actually being used.
How come we're not hearing that on the news?
Because it's literally Western political. It's literally just is political. You don't hear it. Like, there was a Fortune article that came out just a couple days ago, and it reviewed all the vaccines, and it was basically saying like, out of like the Sinopharm vaccine, or the Sinovac, I forget, is the Chinese company vaccine. It was the earliest one that got rolled out. It's the one that uses the traditional methods of vaccine creation, and it was already, the test trial they used was more than all the other vaccines combined, because they were the early movers, right? So it was like almost like a million.
They didn't want to release
phase
the
1
news
to 3,
because
double-blind test subjects, right? And this is the one that's likely going to be the one that vaccinated the majority of people around the world, because the storage is only 4 to 8 degrees Celsius, right? It's very accessible for most of the world, developing countries.
And you're saying the Western world doesn't know about it because it would make it's kind of like the Cold War kind of thing.
Yes,
right?
it's a Cold War. It's just they won't widely report on it. And if they do, it's usually...
How come they would report the Russian one then? Is it because they're like, we don't have faith in Russia?
No, they didn't report it. They didn't report it positively. The Russian one, they reported it negatively. They just said, "Oh yeah, look at this."
Exactly.
This one that they're rushing out, and is Russia rushing out this vaccine? How safe is it? Can anybody vouch for its reliability or safety, right? And the funny thing is, people may not have caught this, but when UK rushed the Pfizer vaccine for approval under emergency use, there was a lot of people. There was a couple of voices in like America that were kind of criticizing this. One of them who was actually Fauci. Fauci gave an opinion that said, sometimes he doesn't like. It's basically he doesn't like stuff that's getting rushed. He because you can't be sure of the safety or whatever. That, I'm paraphrasing, but his opinion that he put out, whether by accident or deliberate, was that, right? Like it was a kind of a critique of Britain approving whatever for emergency use. But a couple of weeks later, the U.S. had to do the same thing. So everything, you could see the dime, by the fucking like the drop of a dime, the news articles and all the opinion pieces that get generated now is like, oh, look, it's so good. It's 90 plus 95% efficiency. And then the news stories are now like, what are governments doing to ensure that there will be a steady logistics supply or whatever, right? And who's going to get the first ones? All these articles come out where a couple weeks ago, you had even Fauci criticizing just the UK for doing emergency use, right?
How good is Sputnik 5 then?
I don't know.
What would you say?
But like, it's good enough for the Russian people. Like, I mean, like the thing is, all of these vaccines are going to be emergency rushed. They're not under normal circumstances, right? Because you can only simulate so much, but you don't know. They can't really do the final test for like long term effects, and there's enough tests to go on saying that, oh yeah, there's not going to be like bad adverse effects. It's not going to kill anybody. It's not going to like give everybody this new fucking sickness or whatever. The most they could say would be like, allergies, maybe some like just some like side effects. But the whole point of going through all the phases 1 to 3 and double blind testing placebo is just to make sure that, yeah, it's effective, but also like it doesn't kill you, right? It doesn't fuck you up. So all these.
Do you think would it make more sense for all these vaccines to pool together and then like redistribute it so everyone? Yeah. So like the vaccine isn't like just concentrated, like Russia gets Sputnik 5 and Pfizer is the Western world. And
yeah, and people
the Chinese vaccine.
Okay, the countries that kind of signed up. Okay, the American companies, and that includes like Pfizer. The Americans kind of made the deal. They set it up where it's like, first and foremost, it will be used in the United States before it goes to the rest of the world, right? In the beginning, when the World Health Organization was talking about the vaccine development, they were saying like, okay, well, most countries, including like a lot of third world countries and also China, they signed up to like the World Health Organization. I don't know if it was like program or promise or whatever, but saying like whatever vaccine that comes about, it has to be distributed as far and worldwide as possible or whatever, right? And it was like under one kind of like initiative where like all these countries are pooling data to help manufacture vaccine. You get individual actors come out of that after, especially under Donald Trump, where he was saying, I want an American vaccine to be ascendant, basically, to be developed by us, used by us, and we control the products, the supply, and whatever, right? So you do have the split between the development of the vaccine. So, and then in China as well, China has the most vaccines on trial phases. Like more than half of the top ones, or the closest ones, are Chinese vaccines, right? I think a couple number of them are with like the World Health Organization initiative, where it's like once you are manufacturing it, you gotta like distribute it everywhere, and you have to basically paying at cost or whatever. And then some other Chinese companies are kind of like the deal with Pfizer and stuff, where it's like in-house grown, whatever, and distribution will be depending on whatever.
So no one has made the global one then? Everyone's focused on
the global one is just China one is part of the global one. There's some other ones that are part of the global one as well.
So we can apply for those.
Well, Canada is a little bit trickier because we got caught in a kind of a political spat with China, right? Like there was Sinovac was supposed to Sinovac had Canada was supposed to be in the Sinovac trials, right? Because at the time it was very little people in China that got infected, so they had to go to other countries to do the trial tests, right? Their biggest one was in Brazil, right? But Canada, Canada signed on to get some trial tests happening in Canada, and the deal was that deal with that is basically if you're one of the countries that volunteers and signs up for this trial test, when the vaccine's made available, you're one of the first countries to receive the shipment, right? But there was a lot of politicking behind that, and then the vaccine, the trials, like they got postponed and then fucking, like canceled quietly later on, right? And then so that's why Canada is basically 100% like going double downing on just the Pfizer one because.
So like, how come no one asks these questions when Trudeau hosts his like talks? It'd be like,
because politicians they'll just sidestep it. I mean, like with the trial itself, like people can only guess why the trials didn't really happen, right? Like they were all set to happen, and then from the Canadian side, it'll be like, oh, the Chinese customs didn't want, it couldn't approve it for leaving the country.
It's always custom.
Yeah, then the Chinese would say, well, no, it's due to it was due to a political disagreement between the two countries that it stopped, right? So then like you can't really whatever. Like if you're in the Canadian, you take your side. If you're Chinese, you'd be like, okay, the Chinese explanation is the way to go. But at the end of the day, all it means is Canada doesn't. Like this, the other countries that did take part in the trial, like Brazil, UAE, you see them now. They're rolling it out. They are rolling it out. UAE basically approved it they're using it now. The vaccine.
What's United
Arab Emirates? Yeah, and a lot of all these other countries, a lot of African countries, whatever. Indonesia, like they're set to get their vaccine doses. They already got them, and they're receiving the next tranche. January next year, right? So
how about Australia and New Zealand? Are they gonna get it?
I think
from China.
I think Australia probably not, because Australia at the same time is also having a really big diplomatic spat with China. But
what did they do?
Oh, it was yeah, they have a trade war going on right now, and there was that whole debacle of the Australians. They had like Australian soldiers that executed a bunch of Afghan civilians.
Oh, no, you cut out.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. I was always wondering it was me.
Yeah, I don't know why the fuck I'm cutting out and shit. But yeah, Australia and China are kind of in the midst of a trade war right now because of some political barbs that were traded, right? And then the most recent one was the I think some Chinese guy that works in like the foreign ministry or whatever just retweeted like this cartoon of the Australian SAS soldier basically slitting the throat of an Afghan kid, and then Australia was not very happy about that. But fucking, and then it's just they're just having a spat from that, because the recent one was like, I don't know if you follow this, but it was just a bunch of Australians. Soldiers were found guilty of executing like Afghan civilians. There was a video of it too, where a guy just shoots a kid on his field while he's lying down. And then so Australia kind of had egg on his face, but then it was in the context of like Australia and China were like just fucking hurling insults at each other, and then the guy kind of post this and it was like, okay, is this he posted that like that political cartoon of the Australian executing the kid, and he's basically saying, oh yeah, is this the human rights you're talking about and whatever, and then fucking and then the Australian Prime Minister just fucking flipped the table at that. So there's some political molding going on. That's why I think Australia probably is not looking to get a Chinese vaccine, even if it's available, because politically it looks bad, right? Just like in Canada, politically it looks bad if you get the Sinovac vaccine. So they are probably doubling down on Pfizer as well. I'm not sure.
So where are we with the Huawei CTO gal?
Oh,
is she back in China?
No, she's in Canada still. They still haven't decided whether the trial's still going on.
I thought if she accepted the plea deal, then it's all good.
Yeah, but she's not accepting it. That's why it's still going on. And the whole
okay. See, the news never told me she didn't accept it. They just said
they're offering her
a plea deal.
Joe Biden's offering her a plea deal. His administration's giving that option. If anybody ever needed an example of fucking like law is subordinate to politics and the fucking political power, this is literally it. Like, at this national level, Canada was asked by the United States to do this thing. And then all legal justifications comes after the fact. It's either you agree to do this thing, you find a legal justification to do it. Even if there isn't, you can fucking create it. They detained her at the request of the United States. And now the United States, because of the change of administration, they're saying, oh, fucking let's cut a deal or whatever, you don't need it. Canada's literally you're sitting there with your hand in your ass the whole time. You'll be like, oh, I did exactly what you wanted me to do, and I got punished for it. And now it's like, oh shit. now it's like the new guy thinks it's not as big of a deal. Okay, this is kind of awkward as fuck. This is it. Like this is literally it. Like people, when you'll always find people that like diehard supporters of whatever thing the country does. Like a lot of Canadians conservative pieces in the beginning, liberal fucking commentators and shit were saying stuff like, yeah, of course, this is all done on the books. This is all by the law. This is not political interference at all. There's no political calculus in this at all. It's all done above board. Whatever. Extradition, you need the fucking, what was it called? The double fault or whatever. Like, you had to break the law in Canada and the United States. Yeah, it totally applies here. And then, right when you get the new administration in the U.S. and they're like, hey, why don't we fucking start talking about like plea deals and letting her go or whatever the fuck in exchange for other things, then like it just shits on all of that. Like anybody that espouses that view should be embarrassed by now because literally blew up in their faces.
I see. So then the people who are really hurting are the Michaels who are in China, right? Because they're living in, I assume, jail, right? Are they in jail or are they in hotels?
Yeah. No, they're in prison.
Are they peeling garlic?
Apparently they're living like I think they're in solitary, but it's not like solitary as you think of when you see like U.S. prison solitary. It's like they get their own room. They get like whatever fucking. It's a much more cushier cell, but it's not. It's just you don't have any cellmates with you.
So it's like a hotel room,
but
by yourself.
It's in prison. It's not like It's not like Meng Wanzhou in Canada. She gets to live in her house, right? Her big house in Vancouver or whatever. Yeah. It's not like that. Those two are in a prison, right? But it's not like they're fucking peeling garlic and shit. They're just I
feel like they should like.
What's so bad about peeling garlic?
I don't know. I would peel garlic fine, but
well, in China, that was a labor issue. Well, not an ethical issue that they use prisoners to peel garlic, and it gets to a point where because they have a quota and you have to peel so much garlic, and it gets to a point where their fingernails are so raw that they lose their fingernails and start have to chewing the garlic and stuff. And then they sell this peeled garlic to the Americans. That's what I saw.
Yeah, I don't think.
But you can change my mind.
Usually, a lot of this stuff is not even like that. Like most of the China news that we get here, especially spouts on Reddit, is either straight up just like fucking faked, or it's like just taken completely out of context or exaggerated and shit. And it's like, yeah, you get prison labor in China, you get prison labor here as well. Like, you get what I mean? It's like just because it's there, it's not like a worse version of it, right? Like the peeling garlic thing is like, like you get them making shit in prison labor, which is on its face of it, prison labor, you shouldn't really have it, right? Because fucking it's basically slave labor. But if you're gonna put it into context, it's literally prison labor over here, prison labor over there. It's literally the same prison labor. It's not like they're fucking working people to the bone there. They're just making them work for like cents on the hour, and that's it. But it's like
I do think labor in prison is kind of important.
My whole point is a lot of Chinese news that you get from here, especially if it comes from mainstream, even Reddit. A lot of it on Reddit, it's sensationalized, and it's to the point where like they'll get a lot of the right now the most popular thing are the Uyghur ones, right? But Redditors, most of them, they don't know what the fuck's going on, so they get pictures of people that aren't even Uyghurs or stuff that doesn't even happen in China, and they're like, look at what this is doing. There's a prison guard beating up a Uyghur or whoever, and it turns out to be like an Indonesian guy beating up a fucking like dark-skinned Indonesian, and it gets shared around like thousands of fucking upvotes, whatever. And it's like, oh man, this is terrible. See,
I just love how like that dark-skinned Cambodian or Indonesian If he was just known as the dark-skinned Indonesian, no one cares. But
Yeah,
as soon as
but
you labeled a Uyghur,
I know, right?
everyone's like,
No,
oh,
it,
man,
it was from something like 5 years ago, but someone took it and basically just captioned it and said like, "Oh, this is a Uyghur getting beaten," fucking blown up. It was viral, right? So like this stuff happens all the fucking time, and especially just for the Uyghur thing, the one guy that everybody sources all the Uyghur reports from is a guy named Adrian Zenz. Literally, if you look through any report, it's his name on it. Just one guy, and he's a fucking he's a psycho.
I thought you were gonna hype our buddy.
No, not our Adrian. Another guy. This guy's a psycho. He's basically he was a super religious he's a super religious cult nut that basically believes that like fucking doomsday's coming at whatever date, and like whatever like gays should be stoned or something like that. He wrote like books about before he made his name big on this Uyghur case deal. His fucking day job was putting out like really super like religious doomsday whatever books of his whatever religious opinion. Now he's mainstream. He gets sourced in mainstream news. He gets sourced in everything that has to do with Xinjiang and Uyghurs with his name. Like he makes the reports. The latest report comes from him. The first beginning reports come from him. The reports where he says there's a genocide happening and he uses really shitty like data to try to fucking correlate this. All sourced from him. Like literally one guy is responsible for providing the sources for all of this. And this is just going to show like to the point like it's laughable. Like we don't you wouldn't even know that the Chinese vaccines are like the most widely distributed ones and the most like earliest ones, if I didn't fucking tell you. And then, and this is the same these are the same like sources and people that I get from those stories are like, yeah, Chinese prison labor is definitely more inhumane and fucking and shittier than comfy, cushy American prison labor. I mean, like, no, at the end it's like fucking, it's all the same like, bad shit. Like
when we're talking about Uyghur, Mulan didn't do well because people said that they did that scene that related to Uyghur, right?
Yeah,
and it wasn't mostly the Asian audience, the Chinese audience that didn't watch the movie because of that controversy.
No. No, the Chinese audience doesn't give a shit. Because
they just didn't like Mulan. Okay,
no, they didn't like Mulan because to them it was a shit movie. They thought it was a shit movie,
and it did suck.
Oh yeah, definitely Mulan like sucked on its face as a movie. But the Chinese people that were reading, if they read any like reviews or news that came out of Mulan,
Chinese people were reading.
If they were reading the news out of Mulan in the English. Oh, did I cut it out again? Did I cut it out again? Did I come back? Okay,
you cut out.
Let me close some stuff. Maybe that will help.
It would help if you close your Pornhub.
Yeah, I don't have that open. I'm all legit right now.
Would be great if we were sponsored by them, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh man, that'd be great. They'd probably give us free Pornhub Premium or whatever.
That's all you would ask for. I would ask more than that.
They won't give us more than that. Have you seen our podcast?
That's why they should give us more than that. We should get more. Milk this trash.
Yeah, they're not going to give more for this trash.
That'll be hilarious if we're like, "Oh, how much do you guys get paid?" And we're like, "Oh, we just got premiums."
Anyways, what was it? Oh yeah, I was just gonna finish off. Basically, a lot of Chinese can read what comes out in the English press, and it literally looks like a circus, right? And yeah, like I would read it and I would think this is a circus. Of course, I can, like if you are in touch with both sides, if you're in touch with what goes on in that country, and you can read what goes on outside in the Western world, yeah, it's completely like it's a black and white thing. There's whatever you read about it here is usually like so skewed to the point where it's not even corresponding to reality anymore. And they can read it over there. Literally, you got like 100 million before COVID. 100 million Chinese, would go on vacation. They would leave the country to go on vacation or either schooling or whatever. Right, 100 million of them on average a year will go out to the rest of the world. They can read all this stuff, right, and then go back and be like, yeah, these people that are writing about us are fucking insane. Like, you won't believe what they're saying now. Inversely, you have very few Americans and Canadians in comparison going over there and seeing what it's really like and reading Chinese, you know. So you do have
But
this.
you don't credit those guys because Serpentina and
He can't read.
Lao
That guy can't read. You never noticed? Those two guys can't actually read. And yet they make these
I
fucking
did never notice.
yeah, fucking. Anyways, and you know, like you don't get the same amount of people that can like have the insight of what goes on over there and see what does it actually mean and what's really going on.
So you're saying you need like a half breed, someone who is both Chinese and American.
You don't. You
Or at
literally
least
don't.
someone that can read the language.
You can just have like, this problem doesn't really exist in China, even though they have a fucking firewall, an internal firewall for their default, like internet settings or whatever. You got still more of them can go and read English news, whether they have to climb it over VPN or whether they just fucking leave the country to go on vacation or they study outside or whatever. Or they have, like fucking Chinese sites on there that you can use as a portal to watch porn or CNN or whatever the fuck. They can see all this stuff. They know what the hell's going on out here. Nobody out here, by comparison, knows what the hell's going on over there. And you get only your information filtered out from like literally a handful of guys. Like for Xinjiang, it's one guy that provides everything for every single major English news network. And then you imagine, well, who does New York Times source their reporters from? All their correspondent reporters, maybe like a handful of them in maybe Beijing, Shanghai, Hong Kong. That's it. Rest of the country, they don't know, right? They have to get everything is all like second hand, third hand. I think the only place worse would probably be like for information and opacity would be like fucking what? I don't know, North Korea, I guess. Fucking that country, it's completely opaque. But China, you can go there, at least before COVID and whatever. But people don't. They don't bother. They just trust everything that they read and see.
Can we go back to copyright for a second, just because something came to mind?
Go for it.
I was thinking of the reference made to the Nintendo music, and I was just thinking on Twitch, because Twitch has a huge DMCA issue, where basically they're taking down and like even banning people if they play DMCA-able music, which is pretty much anything. And a lot of people are just basically left to either playing like classical music or game music or something like that.
Copyright-free music. Or, yeah.
Yeah. But it's like everything else, it's like
The
they're
big thing
being very
was
strict
that-
on it.
Well, that's because they were super lenient, right? Because Twitch was running in the West, in like free range. They weren't being policed, so people were playing copyright music and stuff, and they were also archiving it. And then when that thing that you're saying strike, a lot of the creators who had years of archived videos suddenly has to drop the whole library because of fear of getting banned. And Twitch had no tools. They didn't give their creators any time to prep for this. And basically you had to clear your library or be risk of getting banned. And people who even cleared the library were still getting banned
Yeah, they get
because
copyright strikes and stuff too.
yeah, they got copyright strikes for videos that they've already deleted. And apparently in the Twitch, I guess, the delete didn't actually get rid of it, or I don't know how their system worked, but it was a false positive. So,
But I don't understand how Twitch is being so much more strict on the rules against it, whereas people that stream on like YouTube or something, they don't have that same restriction.
I think YouTube has the same problem. Well, like YouTubers were faced with this problem for a long time. They've been dealing with it for a long time. Like, for example, there are creators that buy music from a company. They paid them, bought the music, but then later that company get bought up by another company, and suddenly they don't have rights to that music anymore, and they get
Yeah, but I mean, like on
copyright
Twitch, people can't
Mhm.
even sing songs because they'll get copyright strikes or something.
Yeah, that one is strange because you're supposed to be able to sing a song. Like I think we talked about this in the beginning of the podcast. You're allowed to sing a song. They can't copyright you not singing a song, but it's tough, right? Because it's
Yeah,
probably
but-
a computer that's
Yeah, I've heard from like multiple sources and stuff, and when I watch Twitch, some of them outright say like it can't sing or whatever because there's copyright strikes and stuff like that. So,
Yep.
or DMCA in general is the umbrella term they use for it. So it's something that confused me quite a bit.
You don't have to make sense. You can't make sense of it. It's just
You
whatever
can't
the
make
fuck.
sense of it. Yeah.
It's just whatever they're private companies. They can do whatever the fuck they want, and that's the whole deal. And like, if you say, oh yeah, YouTube allows me, well, they can be like, oh fuck YouTube. What are you gonna do? Like, what are you gonna do about it? That's the whole deal. Like nobody, they don't have to run. They don't have to run on some like magic standard of like whatever, like freedom that you can talk about. They decide what you can do. And it doesn't make sense to us. It looks draconian as hell, right? And it's like, okay, well, why? Why are you doing this? They could just be like, I fucking felt like it. Usually,
when the system becomes private, like it's a private company, like you said, and they make the rules. But when so many people utilize it, kind of like a utility, like say fresh water or electricity, should it still be private at that point?
So this is where the next. Like where the next deliberation, like most people around the world and governments and whatever are gonna grapple on, is like whether or not this will need to be like regulated or reined in, or some semblance of like a standard or control should be imposed or whatever. Because as it stands right now, if you're just a company, it's just everything in your terms of service. You decide it, you enforce it, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody can completely do that.
Because like I'm thinking of like even things like GPS, right? I guess GPS.
Especially the one main thing they always worry about is people's personal information being used and harvested, right? But but this copyright thing is also I guess it's a little bit secondary in regards to whether it inconveniences us, or it's kind of like it's shitty for like the everyday video uploader or whatever.
Yeah.
But it would like as it is, you're just at the mercy of whatever site is hosting. So whatever.
Because like a lot of regular TV, is being broadcasted on YouTube nowadays, and actually it's kind of an interesting idea because like how today we live in a world where we're very polar. Like left wing, right wing.
Yeah.
People are talking in their wind tunnel, whatever, right? And some people are saying like, oh, it's because of like social media and stuff, because it's feeding you things that you want to see. Mm-hmm. But like when you look at YouTube, because people thought like maybe YouTube's doing that too, like the YouTube algorithm showing you video of a conspiracy, and that's why you're into conspiracy.
Oh yeah, they do that all the fucking time.
They do that, but actually, when you look at, because they did a study on it. And what they're finding that YouTube actually recommends more mainstream than they do, like these rabbit holes, right?
Oh, I don't doubt that at all. I think you're right. I mean, you're right. The report's right. Yeah, they like to recommend the mainstream frequently, but the algorithm does like create an echo tone because you like something like shitty like Rebel News in Canada or whatever. It's gonna start recommending you channels that similar people go to watch, right? And usually it would be like similar people with similar ideologies with the same, fucked up whatever, conspiratorially minded, stuff.
Yeah.
So
it
does create that echo chamber that way.
It's the Netflix recommendation, right? If you like horror movies,
you might
the way they recommend you. Yeah, you might also like this because what they do is they found that people who watch horror movies also tend to like this, so they're trying to model you, and then exactly. So yeah, you're right. It's that whole. It's like it's not like anyone designed it to be this way. It just happens that people thought
I would argue it's even the other way around. It's not even the Netflix effect. It's just the YouTube effect. YouTube probably has way more of the data and shit they gather to run through their algorithm than Netflix does. And then a lot of the user generated content, they're able to map that out and like fucking push that just because of the sheer amount of people that just have overlapping like watching habits where like it's almost an uncanny ability where if you just watch left-wing political media on YouTube, it fishes out a whole bunch of that shit just because of the sheer amount of people that either like watch the same fucking content as you do. I think it does it way more powerfully than Netflix does.
Oh, it definitely does. Because YouTube also has like custom tags.
That has more content.
Like that.
Yeah, it's much more tailored and precise.
they have more of that, and they also have more content, and so.
But they do push mainstream stuff too. Yes, you're right. They do like to push, and I think that's more like a corporate decision. I don't know whether they get like promotions or.
It's a corporate decision in the sense that one, it's vetted, right? Because NBC is not going to show some horrific video and get their advertisers to leave, like MasterCard and Visa leaving Pornhub kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not going to get NBC showing child pornography on YouTube kind of thing. So they don't need to worry about that.
Funny though.
Yeah. Imagine 5 years later, NBC does exactly that. Wow, times have changed.
I mean, 5 years ago we wouldn't be talking about this, but anyways, they like to show mainstream because it's safe and it makes them money and da da da. But I guess what my point is that YouTube might become the new network TV, right? That all the network channels are on YouTube, right? And at some point,
I think it's already surpassed the. I think it's already surpassed the abilities and reach of traditional network TV. I think
they have a bigger audience.
Yeah, I don't think traditional network TV can even hold a candle to YouTube now.
But like network TV, no one owns the TV network, right? Like the whole network itself, it's kind of made by other networks or whatever.
What?
Or TV itself is kind of like
it's all like it's all under like an umbrella corporate. Like Comcast owns like fucking.
Oh, sorry. What I'm thinking is like telecommunication. Like Canada controls its telecommunication, right? Like TV and radio and stuff.
To an extent,
so
like
to an extent,
it's not like in Canada the state has an overriding, like it has like the sovereignty rights where it can make regulations in regards to it, but most of the content and shit, it's more or less driven by them, by network, by whatever, right. Like private ownership.
There's regulation, and I think that's where I'm thinking about YouTube. At one point, do we start regulating it? Because if all the TV networks and stuff are moving to YouTube and everyone gets their news from YouTube, right? They can't, decide like we're gonna censor Chinese, right? Like we're not gonna, recommend Chinese news to subscribers who subscribe to these channels or stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And you gotta start regulating, or like Twitter, it's getting put in a weird position, right? It needs to like flag all of Donald Trump's tweets, even though it doesn't really want to, right? For misinformation, like voter frauds and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, why is Twitter put in that weird position, right?
But it's I think it's a logical evolution of these places. Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I think it's the logical evolution of these entities. YouTube, as it becomes what it is, eventually it finds itself in the position of actually having to censor things, especially when it came to like COVID or Donald Trump's election, right? And the misinformation and shit. I think honestly, when you get as big or as influential as whatever, you will have to start doing that. Like whether it's your own corporate policy where it's like, we're afraid of losing sponsors or whatever, or we're afraid of like the authorities clamping down, or it's literally like just because like like this whole thing drives it, whether it's just the company or it's like the legal environment or the country, the culture, like the people's culture. They may expect you that like, hey, YouTube, why aren't you doing something like that? Like imagine just looking at Pornhub, like there's an outrage, not just from advertisers and shit, but people were like, why is there so much child porn on Pornhub, right? And fucking
I feel like you would only know if you searched it, but anyways.
But no, like I guess like if you searched it, I don't think it would have been that big. I think it was just big because people that weren't searching for it, you could probably see it like getting recommended or it being like in people's channels or whatever, right? I don't know, but at some point you're like, okay, you got this big, and just with this size, inherently you're gonna get stuff that's undesirable. What are you gonna do about it, right? Like, are you going to do something about it, or are you gonna wait until it becomes what? Or are you gonna let it just run its course? And most companies, they're like saying, okay, we can't let it run its course. Pornhub's like, yeah, you can't just fucking let that shit just run its course and go unfettered.
I think like companies needs to have this department called ethics, and then they have to like start deciding like what are the ethics
They already
And
fucking do, I think. But I think the
what? Who gets hired?
not
as
like
an
not like
consultant?
ethics as we think of ethics, but like ethics like a whole team that says, "Oh, we'll get in trouble and get a lot of fines slapped if we do
Yeah, they
this."
probably just have like content
Yeah, but that's more for
parameters to put in
copyright
place.
infringement
Yeah.
and stuff,
Yeah.
not ethics.
I see.
feel like
Well, it's impossible for them to have an ethics. It's a fucking company. They're not gonna have the ethics as much as anybody wants to pretend that they will,
Yeah, 'cause
right?
ethics is very personal thing, anyways. Like everyone has different ethics.
You know,
to
like
a
things that
degree,
they
but there's
put value
also
to.
universal ethics. That
No,
we
no,
have,
no, you like-
cannibalism and stuff. Like where for most majority, everyone's against it.
if the
right?
country, if there was if a country allowed cannibalism and made it like a legal, made it so that you can make a legal company that offers services of cannibalism, a company, if it makes a profit, they would definitely fucking do that shit. Like they're just driven by profits, and they're just molded to whatever the laws of the land are. So if you're an owner of a company, let's just say the cannibalism thing, you're owner of a company, you're like, you know what, I'm just ethically opposed to cannibalism. Well, the next guy, your competitor or whatever, will be like, I'm not, so I'm gonna make money off it. See, it just inherently is just as long as there's opportunity to make profit out of it, they'll make it.
How can we
As
just
long as it's
change
legal,
profit where the more ethical and the more good you do in the world, the better you get paid? How can we?
No, that's communism. You're gonna get overthrown by the CIA.
Not
Oh,
true
okay.
communism. No one gets paid anything.
In true communism, you won't require. In the final form of communism, there's not supposed to be money anymore. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
Money.
I mean, like, the big question was not like, oh, how can we make companies more ethical? Well, I guess a lot of people were raising that because when YouTube was censoring stuff, they're like, wait, can a private corporation have that much power to censor or whatever? And like I said, fucking why not? In accordance to a lot of Western countries, right? Private entity, terms of service, they say it, you can do whatever. But people are, that question came about. It's like, is it ethical for them to do it? And obviously, the answer is like, they don't give a shit whether it's ethical or not. They just care whether
need to make money.
Yeah, they just care whether they would get slapped hard by the authorities if something went unchecked. That's literally it. It's not on them, right? It's on the authority, the governing authorities, or the people.
Because like YouTube has a lot of power, right? Because it can control what content it brings in. Because
Definitely.
for example, if it said like, hey, we want more videos about turtles, all it needs to do is start recommending videos of turtles.
Yeah.
And then creators seeing that, hey, videos of turtles are getting a lot of views, I need to make a video about turtles. And then suddenly everyone starts making
man.
videos about turtles.
If fucking turtles were cash and shit, plastered all over YouTube, everything would be recommending you fucking turtles.
Yeah.
No problem.
So I'm always weary when YouTube shows me something, and I'm like, why is this showing me this? And then I need to start deciding, like, oh, this is trying to tell me to get into juggling or golfing or something.
Yeah, but
it's always scary.
A lot of people, and that's what people are just afraid of the power that this has, because if YouTube is very big, is very influential, right? It literally influences what people think. Because it's so big, it's not like its agenda is to do that, but it's just because of the size of it, because of all the shit that they have.
So like,
they have a lot of influence. So then that's why they're like, oh, it inherently already has a lot of power. Oh, and you'll have a crowd that says maybe they should do something about it. Maybe the company should regulate themselves. Another crowd that says government should regulate themselves. Another crowd that comes, it's all over the place because they don't know what to do with it. It's a private entity that is pretty much as powerful as a country, but it's not beholden to like the societal laws and contracts between people and the the governing leadership or whatever, right? So that's why everybody's all fucking confused and running around and panicking about this shit.
So like recently in the news, they're trying to break up Facebook to sell off, I think, Instagram and WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think they're going to do that for other companies like Google and Amazon?
Yeah, it really, really depends. And I would argue, my argument would be like this wouldn't do anything in the long run. They already did this to Microsoft, and just look at Microsoft.
Yeah, they just rebuild.
Yeah, rebuilt their way,
hard.
but also you just made way for a whole bunch of other companies to literally just become monopolies, right? And take control of shit, right? So
yeah,
like
it's It's like the Hydra problem. You cut off one head, it just grows.
It is a
more.
hydra. Yeah, it's just more heads grow up, and eventually it is just gonna trend towards. This society is gonna trend towards these companies, these mega corporations are just gonna have more power, more influence, and whatever. And an interesting thing that I've noticed, and some people have pointed out, was this does set up a transition to the next stage, and it does give credence to, okay, well, if you ever think about what will society look like after capitalism, and like in Marx's own writings, they're like, it's capitalism in capitalism it has its own seeds of its own destruction. Just by existing, it sets up its own destruction. In a way,
what is the seed of communist own destruction?
It's
like we know
capitalist own destruction. Well, it's eventually it's gonna build up into the monopoly of power. It basically builds up into one like planned entity. Anyways, like free market competition kills itself, and you're seeing it with these.
But like you think communist also has that or no?
Sorry, it's Marx says it in Capital. And basically, it's the inherent contradiction that drives it. So, what that means was like, Phil joined at exactly the right time. What it means is there's an inherent contradiction in capitalism where it's like the people that produce stuff and the people that work, that labor, right? They inherently want different things. The people that labor want, if you're a laborer, you want a higher wage, right? Commensurate with your labor. If you're a producer, you want to pay them less. Right, that's within the system. That's baked into it. It can't function without it, right? Because the producer needs to make the profit, and because competition exists, there's this thing called the organic capital cost, right? Like this is like the machinery or the automation, the research you put in to make stuff more productive, right? More productive per labor head, or more productive just by processes. Those get inherently more expensive. So if you think about smartphones, right? Nowadays, there's only a handful of companies in the world that can manufacture a smartphone because of how capital intense it is, right? And how much specialized labor it is. You can't just make a phone in your garage and can compete with Apple, right? It has to be mega corporation Samsung, mega corporation Huawei, compete with mega corporation Apple. And, you see already it's an inherent centralization of everything. In monopoly, it's literally centralization. What everybody criticizes in the West about the socialist economy was like, in the past planned economies, you can't really plan for consumer whatever preferences, right? The free market would plan that. But as you see, as production society develops and gets more advanced, you can. Walmart literally now plan. All these corporations, they plan the next year's production numbers, their quotas and everything, their stocks that they need to have. It's all done. You can run it through their algorithms, looking at inventory and sales bridges. It's planned. Walmart's basically planned. There's a book about it, People's Republic of Walmart. Guy writes about basically that. Like Walmart literally runs itself as a planned economy now, right? And it eventually does this because the market competition will fucking make it into this sort of deal. It will alienate labor to a point where you monopolize.
Aren't you just saying that basically capitalism at one point, if it either eats itself, like destroys itself,
it eats itself to the point where it can't be capitalism
that one
anymore.
entity,
yeah,
or it becomes that one entity and is communism.
It's not okay. It won't become communism, but it'll become like a planned entity. Yeah, it won't be like a free market capitalism deal anymore. In its own existence and going through the motions every day, it does concentrate towards that. So what you see,
would you be okay living in a planned capitalist world?
I'm saying like
just communism, but just labeled differently.
Yeah, of course. I always say fucking people will be fine. It's not me that calls the shots. It's the people that fucking are in power and own shit right now, right? They're the ones that would lose out. Like,
so it sounds like we're just heading there then.
But
like, I mean, it sounds like
yeah.
We're not no worries, right?
No. The worry is not in the process itself in a way. Like, the worry is always the reaction. That's why in political parlance, militant conservatism basically are called reactionaries. They're called reactionaries because they're reacting to this change that society goes through. And very often, the reaction is violent, right? So that's what the process itself, at the very most, it raises a question where it's like, okay, you can't have the system right now where you can labor and survive, because inherently, through the iterations and the extraction of surplus, your labor costs can't go up the way you want. It must be inherently kept down. Even if you're the nicest boss in the world, to make sure your company survives compared to your competitors, you have to cut costs, right? You have to make that profit. Very oftenly, you can't cut the organic capital costs. You cut the variable capital costs, which is labor, is people, right? So going through that, the system perpetuates that, and you get a whole bunch of displaced people, and they're angry and they want to change. The violence starts to happen when the people that own all the shit, they don't want the change, so they suppress the fucking people that want the change, right? That's what you see in a bunch of these revolutions, right? Like in England, fucking France, USSR, China, like on the eve of revolution, the suppression happens, and whether it's a successful or not, whether the revolutionaries are successful or the reactionaries are successful determines what your country kind of goes forward from that. And most of the countries that can suppress the revolutionaries and in reaction want out, all they do is buy more time. Because over time, even if you want out for that period of time, you're going to have to deal with this system that eats itself every so often. As long as it survives, it eats itself. And it grows into much more centralized, big entities that literally just kind of that displaces what your society is anyways. You always have to deal with that. That's what it means by the inherent contradiction and the whole like centralization thing. Like even with YouTube, when we're talking about YouTube, we're never going back to that old thing where it's like, a couple disparate TV networks, right? We're not going back to the days where there's only 4 channels on the TV, right? There's no way you can go back to that.
Now instead we go to 4 subscription services.
And then even past that, it will all amalgamate eventually into one subscription service that encompasses what the other 4 big services, right? Eventually,
that's what we want.
Eventually, Spotify, YouTube, Twitch, and everything at its a logical conclusion, it's just going to become one thing. Like the farther enough it goes, like you won't be able to break it up anymore. It'll just become one thing.
Why do
it's
we
all
want
cyclical?
Like, I understand the government. So the government is just pulling us back from progress by breaking up these companies. They're just delaying the inevitable. Why don't they just
the government in these societies, because it's a government that's made on the material basis, the societal basis of free market competition. So that's why they're anti-monopoly, antitrust, whatever, right? They're breaking these up.
Okay, because I feel like they should see the writing on the wall. Like we can't stop this. Let's just push the people to the communist side and have it.
They're not going to, because the government right now, basically, they're propped up in society by the material basis of what makes up our society, which is producers, right? The producers don't want fucking like a socialist revolution to happen, right? So that's why, by extension, the government doesn't want that to happen. Like the government that we have, that more or less represents that moneyed interest.
I don't know how much producers there are, but okay. I get.
So how long until a communist party makes it big?
This is my prediction. In Canada, the United States, you can't have the name communist or socialist or anything in there.
Yeah.
So what will happen will just be something that grows out. Whatever name it's going to be, it will be probably 2 things will arise from this, actually. When you have stuff like this that happens, one trend that happens is you start to have this like mass consciousness and more people becoming like having this socialist mindset, socialist parties being made, like these unions that are more social, like a socialist character that gets made. On the other hand,
you're talking about like Bernie fans? Or
yes,
like
in America you can see it right now.
advocates?
More people are like leaning towards that sort of deal, right? Like a Bernie Sanders sort of something that would be unheard of in America before, right? On the other side, reaction also can also like go towards one side too, and that is like a fascist, an autarkic sort of organization society. So what that means is both kind of deal with like a collapse in the current society, which would be a capitalist society, but they deal with it in different ways. The socialists would say, like basically seize the means of production from the producers or whatever for the laborers. But the reactionary side on the other side would be like basically change the argument between classes, change it from producers and laborers to one of fill in the blank, whether that's race, whether that's by nationality, or whatever. The reactionary side basically shifts the argument to one that it's our side versus another side, and the goal is basically to defeat the other side to gain the resources. But the crucial part is they cannot frame it around class, between labor class or producer class. They have to frame it around something else, whether it's by as ethnicity or citizenship or whatever, right? It's to act as a scapegoat, a unifying scapegoat. And capital, usually, as you saw right before World War II and during the Great Depression, they will usually side with the far right, the autarkic fascist side, because in that side, if you're a producer, you get to still hang out into your position, but you'll just be doing it not in service necessarily of purely profit, but profit if it services the grand goal of fucking whatever, annihilating another race or whatever. And it deals with this, relieves the material shortage problem, because in socialism, it's like the laborers are getting back their fair share of the labor they put in, right? That's how the redistribution goes that way. But if you're a right-wing fascist or whatever, the way that you will solve this material shortage problem is you will go and take what previously you couldn't have access to. So it's an expansionary. It's like British imperialism, but based on a defined, clear group, right? Like a defined, clear identity. We are the way we are because we're superior. We deserve the material possessions of whatever neighboring country or whatever neighboring ethnicity or whatever. They're not deserving of it. We are. So we will go and take from them. That's the difference. So in the future, the worse things get, you'll see a divergence, and you already see a divergence in people's political attitudes already, but you'll see a much more extreme divergence between people that either lean towards the socialist side or lean towards the fascist side. In America, you can see it play out before your very eyes. American exceptionalism, by its very core, is a proto-fascistic ideology, because you're saying that you are exceptional because you are American. And because you're an exceptional American country, you can do things that other countries can't do. You're not bound by what other countries can't do. So if it's like fucking take the oil, we should. We're the exceptional country. We should limit fucking immigrants coming in. Yes, we should. They're illegal. We're legal. That's the distinction. If you're a legal American, you're entitled to all this, and illegal non-Americans are not entitled to this. And it goes from there. Anyways.
Cool.
The awkward silence.
Well, I mean, like, you're not usually taught this in social studies. You gotta go, like...
No, I agree.
So when the signs are there, right, like, you can see it, It's gonna arise in Canada as well. Because you started seeing people like Maxime Bernier say this almost exact same shit, right? So you're seeing
you mean
this...
the guy who flip-flops, who changes parties and creates his own party?
Yeah. But
okay.
Right? But politic-wise, that's kind of what you see. And
Right.
YouTube is what literally, like, the amalgamation of production and shit. If you think about it in the media sphere, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, literally it becomes this. It's already far surpassed what network television and whatever used to be, right? This is basically going accordingly to how it was predicted.
I thought it was interesting that YouTube has an algorithm that can tell naked people versus people in bikinis. I thought this is how they detect if you put like naked or porn on YouTube versus like a video of like people on the beach.
I honestly think
That's
in
pretty
the
impressive.
end, I think YouTube's just gonna take over like all the porn sites anyways. Like it's all gonna be under one. I imagine that it's all gonna be under one. So whatever.
I mean, that's a pretty good idea for them. Porn is such a big money maker.
I was just gonna say, like, with the existence of Pornhub, how does things like OnlyFans do so well? Like, why would people want to pay for it?
Because people have too much money.
No,
But actually, it's like they just want to see that one specific person, right? Or something like that. They get those simps.
Well, I thought the ideas of pornography was variety. Like, you can.
No, but you got fucking fans. It's in the name. You got a fan for like whatever porn star, and they set up their own page that they will upload their videos and exclusively to. If you're a hardcore fan, you want to get in on that. You pay money in on that.
Yeah, it's like it's very specific. So it's very specific to that one taste. Like, oh, this one specific girl.
I guess it's that whale thing then. I guess it's that whale thing again. Okay.
Yeah, you're not. If you're just jerking it to whatever. Yeah, Pornhub will serve you, right? But if you're jerking it to a specific star, you may be more inclined to pay for their OnlyFans.
I wonder what's...
Especially because they will upload a lot more stuff to it. And I think they do it because they get more money out of it. They get more out of a bigger share, a bigger cut.
You know how like people say like say the definition of cheating. People have different definition of cheating. Like some people consider watching porn cheating and stuff like. But I wonder if it's like there's a degree of now watching porn. It's like, oh, are you watching OnlyFans porn? Because then it seems like you're cheating because you're sexually involved with someone else. Versus like Pornhub, which is like you're spread to anyone. You're like, oh, it's just a pretty picture on the screen kind of thing, right? It didn't matter who it is, so you're not like, you're not targeting anyone specifically.
Because I think with OnlyFans, it goes to a different degree where you could actually talk to them. Like you could probably send them messages.
Yeah, you're gonna interact.
So that in the sense of cheating, that seems like more cheating than it is someone watching regular porn.
Yeah, I think it does. Just like you said, it takes it extra step in terms of intimacy with that person because you connect on a different level more than porn, where it's just completely like you're just watching someone like a porn star or whatever that you'll never get to talk to or whatever. And then OnlyFans, where you could actually not only see this individual, but you could also like send them messages and stuff like that.
This is you could also say this is an evolution of the market. They're cutting out the middleman of the producer. So with the OnlyFans or some of these other sites or like Clips for Sale, where you can directly talk and email and basically make your own custom order of porn, people do that now. So
I guess the middleman would be the site itself, which I bet they're making a killing because a lot of the actual people are making a killing off of it.
Before the middleman was more or less the porn studio or whatever that made the films, right? Like not really middleman, but that was
more lucrative.
Yeah, this way it's like you're basically a lot of people are just cutting out the studios in total, and if you're a porn star,
a person could just make it with their phone.
Exactly. They just film it for whoever, and they just get the fan request, like a custom video. They charge whatever for the custom video, right? For whatever like costumes that they gotta get or whatever, and they tailor it to the fan video. So that's what OnlyFans and even Pornhub does that. Clips for like all these are just that. It's like porn star to fan interface.
Does it upset anyone else that these people make such a killing off of this? And then I work a full-time job and get paid crap.
No, you should just do porn then.
I'm not an attractive woman enough to do that to make a killing. It's like that very top percent that actually gets like really good money. It's like with anything, like
you don't
being
need
a
to do
streamer. Basically,
you don't need to stream porn.
Money.
You could just be a pimp. You make more actually.
I think that'd be even more difficult though.
Yeah, that'd be difficult. Especially Jason's personality. I don't think he has a pimp personality.
There's a TV series called The Deuce, and it's made by the same guy who made The Wire, David Simons, and it's basically about the porn industry. It talks about evolution of or not porn, but what do you call it, strippers and stuff, like sex workers, and it goes through the evolution of like traditional pimps and sex worker on the streets to sex worker moving into massage parlors and then moving into like pornography and stuff. I haven't seen
This
it.
is a show,
Yeah, it's the TV series. Yeah,
so it's not like
Similar.
a documentary, but like more so like actual.
similar to The Wire. Like The Wire is
Okay.
about the war on drugs, but they show
What's
it through
what's the show
characters.
called?
The Deuce.
The Deuce.
Yeah, 2017 to 2019. It's about 3 seasons, and it's about sex workers, basically. Similar ideas like The Wire, like try to
I see.
teach you stuff, but through a narrative, I guess.
Okay.
Going back to the so there was this fairly popular article or whatever, a situation where there was this woman that she's a paramedic, but since she wasn't making enough money, she started up an OnlyFans
Oh yeah.
and got into trouble with work. And I don't recall if she was like fired or something. I think she might have been, and it was causing a big controversy, raising the question.
She started her own GoFundMe page in the event that she gets fired.
Yeah. And
Oh,
the,
really?
the
Okay.
whole fucking deal is the reporter just went out of his way to be an asshole, just to fucking.
Oh, the writer, the
Yeah.
news writer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she even said to him, "Like, can you not like expose my identity? Can you keep me anonymous, please?
Oh
I'm
yeah,
afraid
and
I'll
he
get
agreed
fired."
to it, right?
Well, either
even
way,
after
he
that-
didn't do it.
Yeah, exactly. Which scum. But I was gonna ask, like, kind of raise this question: should it matter what a person does outside of their work,
Of course
as long as it
not.
doesn't affect it?
It
course
depends
not.
if you're in the public. Like if you work for a public service, it matters. Because if you're a teacher, you can't you can't have an OnlyFans page if you're a teacher for elementary, right?
But why? As long as
I
it
don't
doesn't
know.
interfere with
Well,
your work,
okay,
then
teachers can't even
Well,
have a
if-
Facebook
you know what?
page. That's the issue. Like they can't even like have their picture of them being in a bar.
Yeah, they gotta watch their image, right?
They have to it's just it's an image thing, I guess. It's a society thing. Well, this is the Western world. I don't know how they do
But
things in China. But
it's not like strictly illegal. It's just that it's frowned upon from
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like socially
society.
not or it's frowned upon, I guess, society in terms
And,
of
like,
society.
But it
But
is-
should it be like that?
But it is to the extent where you could lose your job. It does come to a material
because then it
outcome.
becomes like a private entity thing, right? Because the principal is the one that runs the school, so he makes a call, and he or she is probably gonna not let this through because it just creates too much work for them, right? So they're just gonna let the
but
teacher go.
usually that's why there's like a teachers union that would fucking be the opposition of just firing a teacher for reasons such
Yeah.
as that.
Yeah, I think there were stories. Like, wasn't there this really attractive teacher in Taiwan, and she has an Instagram page, like, and she got let go because a lot of her Instagram she had a lot of these pictures that were kind of
There's not a lot
lewd.
there's not a lot of teachers unions in Taiwan though, so she was shit out of luck, right? Like you're
Yeah,
pretty much beholden to your employer.
so it's
But yeah,
tough.
like I'm under the belief that as long as it doesn't interfere with their work and it's not something illegal, then it shouldn't affect your job status.
Well, you could totally just do the thing where a student's like, "Oh, I was too busy watching your OnlyFans to study for your test," and then suddenly you
That's
can
your
leave
own
it
fault.
to.
It's just it's an awkward thing. Just people don't
That's
want
like
their-
just using an excuse like, "Oh, I couldn't do my homework because I was watching porn."
Yeah,
like,
but this way
okay.
you pin it on the teacher because she has her OnlyFans, and because you were watching her, it was her fault
You see,
because she put content on there.
I think it's not really it's not even that much of the principal's call. It's just whether the people like the parents would have a huge problem with that. So if there's like
Yeah,
all the parents have
parents
a
is
huge
the
backlash
issue.
to it, then the principal will usually just
Which
fire
would
the
be
teacher.
likely the mothers, not the fathers.
I don't
Anyways.
know. Yeah, sure. The fathers are jerking it to it, but yeah, okay, sure, whatever. But either way, one of the parents, if, you have enough of them raising up a stink, that teacher's job is in trouble then, right?
Yeah.
Which
So unfortunately,
I don't know
yeah.
whether more interesting thing. Obviously, in Asia, the society is more old school minded. So obviously, like in China, Japan, Korea, if the parents find out like the teacher is anything of that sort, like it's anything like that different, they might raise a stink about it. Yeah, but I was thinking of a more like a socially more like way open place, like I don't know, fucking like the Netherlands or whatever. I don't think they would care if the teacher was a porn star on the side. I'm guessing. I don't know. I would imagine if that was those societies were your best bet to have like real teachers slash OnlyFans porn stars.
Yeah, it's just a shame that that's the way society
It's a good
is.
question, though. I think that's a good mind thought. It's a good mind exercise. Like,
really. Hold up, but
What?
Phil popped in. I don't know if he has anything to say about this. Welcome, Phil.
What's wrong with teachers being porn stars? huh?
Nothing. Jason just doesn't want them to be punished.
Jason's defending them.
For being
Jason's
so.
saying that
I'm saying
They-
that as long as it's not something illegal and as it doesn't interfere with their work, then it should be fine.
Yo, I say so too. I mean, like, fuck, if it's not hurting anybody, they can do whatever. Plus, the more bigger problem was, that whole story with the paramedic that did her OnlyFans page. Basically, like, okay, well, fucking, if your job can pay you enough so you don't have to start it, then she wouldn't have had to start it. Wasn't like the whole reason she did the OnlyFans was she was short on cash?
Yep.
Exactly. So it's not like
yeah. I mean, AOC. That's what AOC was saying. AOC.
yeah, of course AOC would be
tweeted
one of those
saying,
people.
like,
Yeah,
The biggest.
yeah, she would say that
Well-
I'm saying as well.
I mean, yeah. I mean, AOC should be a Twitch streamer.
She did some Twitch stuff.
Yeah.
I'm always
Well, she played
big-
Among Us with a few Twitch streamers.
Oh, sorry, Phil's talking.
I was gonna
But-
say I'm always for freedom. So like, if you're contracted for a workplace for 8 hours, the workplace should have no bearing on you outside of that, unless they're gonna compensate you outside of that.
Yeah, well, obviously, yeah. Fuck. If it was like most of the time, if that's the case, yeah, of course, the workplace shouldn't have any fucking say on what you do on your off time.
But when they terminate people, they can choose, like they can keep whoever they want as part of their organization too, right?
Yeah,
I think if you're part of the organization and you didn't want this type of person, then just kind of they have to play by the rules, and I think that's what it comes down to on why teachers can't do it.
So it just sounds like both sides is right. Like one side has the right to do what they want with their free time, and one side has the right to choose who they hire.
Yeah.
And so
So basically, don't get
So-
caught, right?
no, dude.
yeah,
it's
exactly.
Just,
So
it's
basically,
it's just literally the society you live in. If your society, if no one raises a stink about you doing this, like none of the parents or anything, the school doesn't catch any flack. If this is a completely normal thing, where like your teacher can moonlight as a porn star, it wouldn't even make the news. They wouldn't get fired. She got fired because they made the news, and this fucking bothered like enough people, and it put the school in that
Sure.
situation. That's it.
So a Karen
I
free
think
world.
she's gonna do well though. I feel like she's gonna do well
Oh,
though because
Of course,
she's gonna get more fans on OnlyFans, and she has a GoFundMe page. So
yeah, because she's not the woman we're talking about. Is not even a teacher; is a paramedic, right?
Yeah, she's like
Yeah.
23 years old or
yeah.
whatever.
So unless she doesn't really like to do OnlyFans, that might suck. But I feel like her OnlyFans is gonna get blown up.
Ugh, I mean, like, she shouldn't get fired for moonlighting on OnlyFans. You know what I mean? Like, it has no bearing
Yeah,
on
she
her
shouldn't
being
get fired.
a
But
paramedic. There is
if
no
she
public
does-
consideration for that.
if she does, I feel like she's gonna get enough money to make a living.
Yeah. Well, hopefully.
You think so?
Hopefully, it's something that she's
Hopefully.
comfortable doing, though.
But yeah, that's the thing. Hopefully she's comfortable.
Do you think porn stars really garnish that much loyalty?
Garnish loyalty? I
Yeah,
don't
like-
know.
Yeah,
I feel like our simp is a real thing. I do think, and from Twitch, there's a lot of female Twitch that have very
Yeah, dude.
loyal fans.
Porn stars get a fucking whole ton of loyalty. There's a whole bunch of people out there that just spend mass amounts of cash on whoever. Like, fucking
Oh,
cam
so
girls
there-
and shit. Like, people
They'll
spend
spend a
cash
lot
on
of
that.
money on porn, but like, is it always gonna go to the same porn? Because like, by the nature of the audience, the people who are going on porn are looking for alternatives all the time, right?
Well, we just mentioned that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they got
we were talking about
fans,
the
though.
argument.
If you got
And-
people that are just in it just to jerk
But-
it, and then you got people that are fucking that will loyally follow a porn star. Those
Because
are the ones
we
who
were
are the
saying-
we
OnlyFans.
discussed how for those certain individuals that go after or are devoted viewers of a individual on whatever, either it's porn or Twitch or YouTube, whatever, it's that they have the option to actually interact with that individual as well on a lot of these platforms, and they find a deeper connection than just watching a random video or random porn, Pornhub video or something.
I
like
feel
that.
like if there aren't these fans, words like simp and incel would not exist. But they exist for reasons because it happens.
I just saw that word like 2 days ago. I never knew
Oh.
about it before. Simp.
Speaking of which, simp and incel, I think Twitch is actually banning those words.
Censored.
Well, they're censored,
Oh.
and it's only for harassment use if you're using it. They don't ban it just because you
Man,
type it.
I don't even know what it means, and it's already banned.
It's suckers.
It's a what?
Sucker or simp. What the definition is? Suckers impressed by mediocre pussy. I think that's what it stands for.
Really?
Yeah, we
I
looked it up.
didn't know
one of
it
these
was an
days.
acronym.
It was an well, one of the definitions is an acronym. I thought it was hilarious.
Oh wow.
It was really good. Suckers. The best part is this starts with the word suckers. Anyways,
Is I always just view it as more of a word itself, not an acronym. It's just like a guy who is very nice and stuff like that to a certain
You're basically worshiping.
individual.
You know, you're
it's
worshiping someone.
it's the new term for white knight. That used to be like what
Yeah.
people call people like white knight. It's like, oh, you're just being a white knight to this girl because you like her and stuff, kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
And now it's just simp, which I think it's a better word, personally.
It's a better word.
I like it. I love the word simp. It's hilarious.
We had one of our titles that was just simping. We had simping for one of our titles for our episode.
But yeah, I think that's ridiculous that Twitter is like flagging Donald Trump's tweets, but then Twitch is like, oh, we're gonna ban words like blind playthrough and simps and incels. Like
What,
they
blind
need to get on the
playthrough
level.
is bannable.
Oh yeah,
Or
you didn't know about the blind playthrough? They did
No.
it just because they thought it was discriminatory against actual blind people.
What
Yeah, you were making fun of blind people.
is there another term for a blind playthrough?
First encounter is the term they
Okay.
would you rather use.
Like, hashtag blind playthrough. I think they don't allow
Yeah,
that
you can't do
anymore.
that.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
sure.
It's like it's not like the blind people who watch Twitch. It's like, I don't think they watch Twitch.
whoa,
they
Brian.
could listen to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they maybe.
You
Do they watch
ableist motherfucker. You-
Yeah.
Do they watch blind playthroughs
the
specifically?
the Twitch app actually has a option for audio only.
I wonder if they watch blind playthroughs. That's the other thing, or listen to blind playthroughs.
It's basically audio playthrough.
Yes.
Audio.
They unknowingly do it because they can't see the title or the tags.
Yeah. I don't know what blind people do,
Anyways,
but that's the thing with blind.
I think the moral you can take away from this is expect all your favorite platforms to become more centralized, more powerful, and they will start to regulate and themselves and censor a lot more stuff themselves and decide rules themselves going forward for the next few years.
So do you
And
think Pornhub will be the centralized version of adult, or like you said,
they're
it's
already
not
even
worth
in
it?
the adult industry, they're all kind of getting amalgamated into each other. Like they already have their own umbrella organizations for all these porn sites. It's awesome.
But since Pornhub took down a huge amount of their videos and stuff, I wonder if
it gives
new
room for
up-and-coming
rise for a
site
new
will
one.
come out.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, me
They
and Dave
may,
are on the same
they
page
may
here.
or may not.
Yeah.
Right? They may or may not. Or they may just follow exactly what Pornhub was kind of doing. We'll see. Yeah, I don't know. Either way, they're all fucking like most of it is all owned by like.
I do feel
a
like it's kind of
handful.
annoying. In capitalism, the only way to make it big is you have to cheat the system, like how Facebook cheated the system by, selling people's information for money, and then now everyone starts doing it. But Like, and then they start adding laws against it.
Yo,
But
that
like
ain't-
before,
That ain't cheating the system. That's doing exactly what the system was designed to
It's exploiting it.
do.
well, it's cheating the system today if we had those laws, kind of thing, right? Because we made those laws because we felt like they're cheating. But like companies need to cheat in order to get big, and then once they cheat enough, then they start following the rules, and then they
You
start
keep-
enforcing.
Yep, rules are made usually after.
But- Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, if they're not cheating if the rules are made after, right?
There's no point of fucking cheating. Like, that's what they're designed to fucking do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you exploit
And,
the
like,
system, and once it gets caught, or once people catch on to it, then they make the rules against it.
And to your point, yeah, it's not, like I said, it's not cheating, but to your point, yeah, it's not good because they're doing all this shit, whatever. But it's just, that's the way the game is fucking played. You know,
It is like a
gotta
game.
make a buck.
It's like a character is too OP. People take advantage of the OP character until it gets nerfed.
Yeah, except in this, in our reality simulator, no, the people that need nerfs don't get nerfed. We get nerfed. We're always the
Yeah,
ones getting
that's
nerfed.
true.
That's
They
true.
get,
The
they
lo-
get nerfed.
barely.
Who
But
the
then
Still
fuck
again,
gets
gets
nerfed, but then the
nerfed?
actual individual playing the character, they still get to
Wait,
reap
wait,
the
wait.
benefit.
Who's getting nerfed here?
In over the long term, like everyone in power gets nerfed. It's always cyclical, right?
What? What?
You're talking about
I don't think
like
so.
breakups of companies like Microsoft or Chevron, kind of thing. Like
Yeah,
that kind of
companies
nerf?
don't last that long.
They last
Mm,
long enough.
I
Like
feel like
100
they
years.
last a long
I
time.
mean, like-
Disney's been
in like
They last
Disney's last
lifetimes.
in like our lifetime, it seems like nothing changes, but over like 3 or 4 generations, a lot changes.
That is
I feel-
that is an insane take. Unless what your change is
That's an
saying
insane
is
take,
that it just becomes more and more in their favor. Just because Standard Oil is not called Standard Oil anymore, it doesn't mean that fucking it's risen and fallen. They broke apart, and it just basically came back. And it not even came back. It just, as its separate entities, it kept on growing until eventually it just came back. It just merged together again, and the country was like, "Oh yeah, we broke you apart, but I guess you're just both halves of you were so strong at this point." It's like, "Oh, fucking merge back into like Imperial Oil. Go ahead." Like the whole fucking industry, like the entire powered interest has not done nothing but grow. So it's not like, oh yeah, when was the last time you saw an oil company, like the oil company as an aggregate, become much less powerful? I mean, like, it's not in the cards yet until it starts to fucking change. There starts to be like an actual pushback to limit fossil fuels, right? I mean, like, until then, it's all just growth. Even till now, we know that like the planet is getting fucked from it. And still, they have mass amounts of power and influence, and the world is run on it still, right? So, like, your hands are tied. Like, when have I? So even if you know, like, Standard Oil got broken up as a monopoly, didn't do anything. They just got even more stronger.
You know, in an alternative world, say like companies weren't the thing that controlled the world, but families did, and the family got too big, and then you had the
Like
emperor
mafia?
who had to break up the family,
You still got all of
and
that,
then
man.
and then down the road, there's the generation just remarry and then joins the family again. It's kind of like
you
that's
got all of it. Yeah, except
You still have all of that, and they're all like fighting each other still, right? Like everyone's still vying for control, but the same people don't stay in power. The same, like, even like families, like very few families stay in power that long. Like, I don't know, it always changes hands.
Maybe
yeah, but that's inconsequential.
you're
whether-
saying, yeah, maybe the individuals.
Yeah, exactly.
But still, like an individual.
But
in
if you think
power.
of a corporation as an individual, corporations last forever.
Literally, Americans
No.
ruled that a corporation was an individual.
Well, not forever, but
I
they
mean,
last
200
generation
years.
at the very
200
least.
years.
Okay, what?
Ops?
Okay, wait. Actually, what do you like? Just think it through. What happens to a company? Like, yeah, it may get bought out. What happens when it gets bought out? It's not like it doesn't exist anymore. All the assets are bought out by a bigger company that utilizes those. Like, it's the same. It's just a fish gobbling a bigger fish. You know, it's not like you extract it out.
I think this is the philosophy of what is you, but in terms of corporation. How do you, like, Phil's idea is like, oh yeah, the bigger fish is a different fish, but Zinz is saying, like, no, that fish is the same fish.
Well, from his point of view,
fine.
yeah,
With a bigger
there's
mech
different
suit.
management and there's different whatever ownership of it, but it's still the same thing. It's this amalgamation of this fucking industrial capital in this form of whatever industry it serves, right?
Sure, but then
you
eventually
become
it
one.
eventually it gets merged with the government, and then it becomes like a public
Or,
utility.
or it becomes the government, is what I was saying.
Yeah, it always just gets bought by the government. Eventually, it gets consumed by the government, and then that corporation, it really is no more, right?
Wait, what?
Well, he's talking
What
about the end
corporation
game of
has been-
capitalism.
Yeah,
What?
there's two different things in here, where I'm saying like, yeah, the centralization will basically make that entity become, whether or not it become the all powerful whatever being it becomes, whether that's that's nationalized by the government or not is a different deal. But like, even just if you think about the biggest corporations right now, which one of them got nationalized, especially in America?
The biggest corporations are like the oil and gas and construction companies, and most of them are nationalized. All like the largest banks are pretty much nationalized, right? I mean, Apple and Google
but they,
are pretty much
dude,
nationalized.
they're different things though, because like, okay, is if you're talking about banks, if you're just talking about like Bank of China or whatever, right? Bank of China never started out as a private entity. When it's at its conception, it was nationalized. It was the public bank. Saudi Aramco was not really like. What happened in Saudi Aramco is, yeah, they nationalized their oil, not necessarily the company. They made the company on the top of their nationalized assets of oil, right? Saudi Aramco was not a private company before, and then it got bought out. It was made as the national company, the national oil company of Saudi Arabia, after the resource was nationalized by Saudi Arabia. So that doesn't happen. You don't have like a private corporation becoming so powerful and then the government buys it out.
No,
that literally doesn't happen.
No. But the thing you're saying kind of doesn't make sense to me, because like the Saudis coming in there and building an oil company doesn't make sense. Like they would go in there and take the leading oil company and just consume them, right? They wouldn't start off from scratch building an oil company. That's what they would.
Like, yeah, okay. What happens is not like they went to buy the companies and then made the companies like into their own company. You know what I mean? Like that entire thing was not even a business decision. It was a geopolitical decision. It wasn't like the CEO of Saudi Aramco decided to buy out whatever and then they fucking decided and then, like, oh yeah, now we belong to the government. Like, it was like a fucking geopolitical decision at that point.
Right, basically like the king went up to the company and be like, hey, you're working for me now.
No, he's not working for you. He said the oil can only be extracted by Saudi, basically. That he said that the Americans are no longer as corporations allowed in there, but to deter the Americans from just outright fucking Iraqiing them, they said, but I will basically give the United States all the preferential treatment. So then the United States was like, okay, sure. As long as you supply me the oil, I don't care if you nationalize the oil. You can have it as Saudi Aramco, but you sell it to me. By far, like, the primary consumer of this.
It's just a technicality.
It is geopolitical. It's not a business. It's not like a business process or even like a capital accumulation process that they got there. There was no capital accumulated by the Saudi Arabia to buy the fucking company. It's basically Saudi Arabia came into existence, and by the population pressure of seeing infidels on the land extracting oil, the king basically said, we're going to nationalize it, but please don't invade us after we nationalize it, because we will be subservient to your oil needs as Saudi Aramco. That's what happened.
Right. Well, yes, I don't disagree with that.
So that's
but basically the operation was there. They consumed what was existing, right? It's not like they started from scratch. Like the corporation. So whatever corporations was out there pumping oil before Saudi decided, hey, that we're gonna get involved, they lost all their power. They lost all their ability to profit from the oil because the government came in. And that's what, usually always happens. If the business becomes too profitable, and the utility is too great, the government will just take it over.
No, wait. When does this ever happen? Like, aside from like one of those things where what was that name you call for it? Like water utilities, where it's like fucking what's it called? There's an economic term for it, but basically like. If you're in a country where that's not an actual nationalized public utility, you're a private corporation, but it's regulated rate under the government. It's not like it's never in the history of right now, the big corporations, do they do that to an actual corporation? You know, that isn't like a fucking public utility. You like what? Show me the last time they nationalized fucking like Microsoft or something. Like they broke it up for antitrust laws. They didn't nationalize Microsoft. And then if you're talking about buyouts, that's a different thing entirely, right? And I would argue that during like a fucking huge recession, if you're a country, you should take it. But that's a very socialized sort of ideology and direction to nationalize a company, right? What happens often in these share buybacks is literally the government just buys the shares, but basically sells it back. Like they're just buying it to prop them up financially. The company, as the buyback, and then the company through the stimulus buys back the shares. So the government isn't looking to own the company. They're just propping up the fucking industry. So I would totally be in favor of what you say. You know, like, oh, fucking something fails, government comes, or gets too big, government comes and nationalize it. That would be awesome, in my opinion. But it never happens like that. It's the opposite.
Or the counter argument is always government's always inefficient, and if they did consume it, then we ran poorly. But
here's this funny like mind fucking doublespeak. All right, so why do the monopoly? Why aren't in a free market society? What was one of the arguments they say that government interference? If you're a libertarian, why they shouldn't have government interference? They say it because they're like the government has an unfair advantage in the marketplace due to the resources they can bring to it, right? That's why they advocate for non-government non-interference in a free market. But on that entire flip side of what you're saying, of the same people like free marketeers would say would be, well, government is inefficient. That's why they can't compete with the free market. And then
actually, if anything, this COVID shows that government is efficient because they got the vaccine out.
That's not my viewpoint. I'm just pointing out this ridiculousness of this argument that always flops. Both sides, no matter how you flip it. Because on one side, the government is this big, omnipotent, powerful entity that's super efficient. That's why people are afraid of them entering the free market to distort it in the first place. On the other side, it's a completely inept, inefficient entity that isn't competitive. That's why apparently they shouldn't enter the free market in the first place.
They're not efficient, but they have a competitive advantage.
Oh, sorry guys, I need to go.
All right, see you, Brian.
All right, man.
See,
like they can pull resources. They can pull resources that other companies can't, and they're also inefficient at doing it, so it creates a lot of dead weight.
It depends on the context of what you're talking about, right? Like, so, yeah. I mean, like, efficiency is not just one catch-all term, right? Like, when Brian was bringing up the COVID response, the government turned out to be more efficient at doing the mass procurement of fucking PPE and shit than private companies that had to outsource and ramp up or whatever, and the prices weren't even unified, right? They're finding that problem with the states, where they're asking PPE companies in the states, they're like, "Oh, can you ramp up production?" No, we can't. And the ones that we can, you know, like the prices are insane. Like we have to buy them overseas anyway. So everybody, even the companies, were calling for the federal government to step in to make the purchase and to procure the masks, because as a unified entity, they can buy it in bulk, or they can produce and buy it, whatever means of procurement. They can do it in such a number that is that can't be rivaled by, you know, an individual private entity. And I get what you mean. Like, yeah, in some efficiencies, in a big organization or entity, you might have some bureaucratic fucking stuff, right? Which if you're more smaller and more nimbler, you can handle things. But, you know, like that just points to being efficiency not being this one thing where it's like a yes or no, right? It's you have to look into what you're talking about when you're saying being efficient about something. But that's
Yeah,
also, but that's
in the
also
short
my
term.
point. I mean, like, is seen as this. It's like the Schrodinger's government, right? It exists as this inefficient entity and also as this efficient entity, depending on what argument you wanna subscribe to.
Yeah, it really is. Like the COVID response, some aspects of it was really good, and then you see, hey, like election, and it's like they can't get anything done, and the whole politics of everything else is nothing can get done.
Well, I would say that you shouldn't take I don't think anyone should take the United States government as an example for this. If you just take anybody that was at the median position of competency, like then that's a much better benchmark much more consistent benchmark to kind of go off of. Yeah, because the United States government, they were completely inept at dealing
Yeah,
with
it
this.
really comes down to the leader at the time, right? Like whoever's in power, and they really can determine the outcome of the individual countries.
Well, leader too, but also I think is just your system, your ruling system, because under Obama, they also ran into not like the ineptitude at this magnitude, but they also ran into similar like just systemic roadblocks during his response for swine flu and Ebola, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think it has the person in charge individually. Yeah, it may have an effect as well, but the larger effect, the overriding effect, would be the system as a whole and how it functions, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough. Free market. I don't know. Maybe
I mean-
maybe it will work out. Who knows?
My thing about the whole thing is like if ideology just basically fucking like blind adherence to like some weird whatever like ideological bent will always cause like a distortion of people's understanding on something. So I mean like this libertarian thing where they view when I was saying this, they view the government as the Schrodinger's government. It's just a complete inconsistency, right? That's why I was saying this. If you come to terms with it, you realize there's a ridiculousness of it, and if you put it under analysis, you can come to a much more clearer, like picture of what the hell goes on, right? And at that point, you can say, yeah, fucking like, if you look at it materially, you'd be able to have a much better picture. Anyways, it's been 2 hours. And anybody else have anything to say? I've been rambling on a little bit too much.
No, just curious. Did you guys talk about copyright? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, first hour was all copyright. You have
Okay,
anything
I'm
to
gonna
say? What are your 2
tune
cents?
in for that. No, I just thought copyright and censorship came like really hand in hand. On one side, people don't really draw the connection, but the thing I wanted to discuss was how streamers, like streaming people's video games and like restreaming content or redistributing content, has so many issues these days. That's kind of like where I wanted to discuss. I don't know if you guys talked about that.
We sort of did, but not really exactly that.
We kind of went into the DMCA stuff with Twitch and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Twitch got a big one for music.
Yeah, we talked.
But
about
then I heard like Nintendo stop people from streaming their games too.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah. So
I'll tell you what, man. You can listen to the
Yeah.
episode today, and then next time you come on, we can do a part 2, and then you
Okay,
can give your
a follow-up.
thoughts in. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. I'll listen to it.
All right, man.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, guaranteed one listener.
Nice. But you talked about porn, so it's gonna be another 200 with me.
Hopefully.
Depends
All
on
right,
what
talk
we
to you
say in
later.
the title. Yeah, we can bring a whole bunch of fucking clicks just from that.
Yep.
All
It's
right,
just going to be called porn.
All right. Good night.
All right, good night.
All right, have
man.
a good one.
All right. Like, comment, subscribe, yada yada yada. Do all that
Yeah,
shit.
thanks for listening. Take care out there.
See ya.
Bye.